They are totally alienated. Some of them are in diaspora, some of them are inside Iran. Doesn't matter. Their mentality is like the same. No connection to the place, no connection to that system, to that social life. But there are a group of people that call themselves like Arzeshi, or people label them as Arzeshi, like righteous. Those people who feel that they are thinking about something more than material life. They are like, their concern is more than material life, and they're like, they have some kind of values more than like these economic values or material values. So those kind of people, their valuation system has not been affected that much. They still think in terms of like um, revolutionary goals and ideas to stand up against any forms of like a suppression, any forms of dominance, and any forms of imperialism. And
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Other Armenias podcast. I am your co-host, Tamar Shirinyan.
I'm your other co-host, Milena Abrahamian.
Reminder, please like, subscribe, share, comment, all of the ways in which you can interact. If you are listening to us on one of the podcast channels, please rate us if that's an option there, comment if that's an option there, do all of the things. We love hearing from you. And the more you do those things, the more you increase our chances on the algorithm, and our perspectives and voices come to matter more. And we were recently told that, in fact, we're the mainstream. In a really absurd comment on social media, we are not the mainstream. Make us the mainstream, like us, subscribe, and share with all your friends. We would love to be mainstream. Um, Today we have a really great guest, Dr. Ehsan Lor Afshar, and we are going to talk about Iran, the war in Iran. Israel's and the US's war on Iran has been a world impacting event. Many refer to it now as World War III, as if that hadn't started already 2.5 years ago or so. But it really is a major event and is having effects worldwide, in almost every region of the world, including in Armenia and the South Caucasus, which is part of what we will also discuss today in this episode. So let's get started with that. And Milena, you can introduce our guest.
Yes. So, Dr. Ehsan Lor Afshar is a cultural anthropologist whose work explores power, culture, and value in the Middle East, and especially in Balochistan, the southeastern region of Iran. He is interested in informal economies, border dynamics, and the effects of economic sanctions. Ehsan is currently working on a book that investigates the displacement theory of value as it plays out in economic sanctions. Thank you for being on the podcast, Ehsan.
oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate, the opportunity to get connected with my like friends and like colleagues and this Armenian community. It's a really great honor to be with you.
So to get started, and I think, this is both it's a historical question, because I think that when we think about the war, not us, many people, when they think about the war in Iran, when they think about Iran's political actions in general, they forget that Iran has been under siege, under economic sanctions for a really long time. And so to get us to start thinking historically about, what is the history, what is the context of this war? Um, your research focuses on those sanctions on Iran and how different groups cope with it economically. So, can you tell us a little bit about how sanctions have affected everyday life in Iran and the possibilities of survival in the country for many people, as well as what you look at in terms of these coping mechanisms and these border dynamics?
Oh, thank you. Yes, absolutely. The thing is that, I mean, everybody knows that Iran has been under sanctions since like the revolution, like in 1979. But the kind of sanctions, like the first maybe generation of sanctions, were mostly kind of like a embargo. They were like commodity oriented. So Iran, for example, was not allowed to sell, for example, its oil or buy some specific, like for example, buy like airplanes or some weaponries. That's like kind of like a commodity-oriented sanctions. But since 2011, I mean, around 2011, uh, a new generation of sanctions appeared. They call them like financial sanctions. These sanctions actually they don't focus on commodities, but the trade and like the means of trade, especially the means of payment. So they don't talk about like object X, Y, Z are prohibited. They just say that like these kind of banks or these kind of people, they are not allowed to do any kind of like financial transactions. It means like that even like food and medicine that are not like literally sanctioned, but they are not also like so they are not also exchanged with Iranian partners because like the means of payments are like blocked. And the impact of like these kind of sanctions are really like catastrophic, uh, because these sanctions actually they target banks and financial activities. The first thing they target is like the currency. So what I'm working mostly about like the concept of like devaluation, and I have some reasons for that because I think most of like the literature on economic sanctions, they at least economic sanctions on Iran, they focus, and they have been produced by economists or like international relations experts. They focus mainly on like when they talk about like economic sanctions, they focus on like, for example, on GDP, on like inflation, like prices, this kind of like economic terms. And these are, I mean, true. I mean, nobody can ignore the fact that we have like during the last 12, 13 years since 2012, we have like each year we have like inflation more than 40%, and prices are going up like by by day. But my focus is mostly on the concept of value, which is like like it's about like price, but more than the price. It's something like a social, cultural, and something related to the consciousness. So I uh, personally I mean, very interested in the concept of like devaluation. So devaluation, if I'm gonna like give you an example. So in 2012, I was like a faculty, a university, was an academic and lecturer at the University of Sistan and Balochistan in Saudi Iran. And my salary was like monthly salary was around like $2,500 a month. And I mean, it was like I had, I mean, other annual benefits, like for example, free housing on campus, like a 2, 3, like overseas trips for conferences, and I mean, it was a lot of money for like to live in a small city. And I had my colleagues over there, like in University of Sistan Balochistan. I was employed by master's degree because there was no PhD in anthropology in Iran. I mean, because like Islamic revolution, Islamic government, they didn't like anthropology, and anthropology was like the program was shut down and then reopened it in like around 1989 or 1990s. And they only accepted like few students in like master's program. And when I was accepted to the program, I was only one of like a 10 or 12 like graduate student in anthropology. Anyways, my salary was like $2,500, and my colleague was like in another department. He was like employed at the same year in 2012 with like this starting salary of like $4,000 a month. So after 13 years or 14 years, that my colleague is right now, He's a full professor. He worked hard. He published a lot. He published a lot of books, and a lot of like PhD students were graduated under his supervision. But his salary right now, when converted to a dollar, is less than $400. So it means like 13, 14 years of hard work resulted in like diminishing of his salary from $4,000 like 13 years ago, 14 years ago, to $400 now. It's not about like devaluation of currency. It's about like devaluation of labor and the devaluation of humanity and the devaluation of everything, skills and knowledge and everything. So that's what I am like working on it. So this is not about like because of like a currency lost its value. It's more about like how people connect to their environment, to their place, to their life. So if you want to understand Iran right now, you need to understand like that what happened to these people during the last 10, 12 years. What happened to people, like for example, another example from my own experience. When I left my country in 2012, I sold my own car, and it was like a cement car produced in Iran. I sold it like 8 million tumans, and tuman is like a like informal unit of currency in Iran. The formal unit is rial, but people use tuman, and like each tuman is 10 rials. Anyways, I sold it 8 million 2 months. And I sold it to my brother, and my brother sold it to somebody else. And I know the car right now after 10, 13 years, 14 years. The same car still, is used in Mashhad, eastern Iran. And the price of the same car is 400 million 2 months. 450 million 2 months, like maybe like more than 50 times the price that I sold it 12 years. So 13 years ago. So I mean, again, you have a used car after like 13 years, the price is going up like it's going to be like a 55 times more than the starting price. But again, it's not about like inflation or like rising prices. It's like about how people can relate with these kind of objects, right? If you look at like Siemens' theory of like value, or in his philosophy of money, like money is something that, I mean, in his theory, like value of objects comes from in his like from the distance between us and objects. So if objects are so close to us, or so, like for example, air, they don't have that much value, or so in distant to us, they lose their value. It's very, very, I mean, far. Like for example, a private jet is so far from us right now, right? As an object, private jet ownership, it doesn't value that much to us. But there should be a reasonable distance between like subject and object of value, and the money is like bridge this distance, or like help us to get to that objects. That's the function of money in his philosophy of money, Ziemel's philosophy of money. So I mean, on one hand, you have like the value of labor is like diminishing very rapidly, as for example the case of like my colleague example. And on the other hand, you have like the price of objects going up. So the gap between like this subject and object of value is going wild. So for a lot of people right now, like it's impossible to think buying a car. It's impossible to like home ownership is something like impossible to think about. That has changed dramatically the life, and I can provide more example if we have time. I'm not sure about like the timing, but I mean what I'm working on is like how like this kind of relationship between subject and object of value has affected people's relationship to their place, to their country, to their like other people, to their society. So I mean, this kind of all of like this kind of sentiment, it's not kind of a sentiment, it's like as something happens in your consciousness. I want to theorize it under the concept of alienation. Actually, this kind of like relationship with objects alienates people from their place and from their life, like material life.
So, I mean, essentially, when you think about value that way, the way that I'm understanding what you're saying is like concepts like inflation or currency devaluation and whatever abstract what are actually really felt individually psychic dimensions of dignity, right? These are questions of dignity.
Exactly the same. Yeah, that's true. I mean, dignity, self-worth, actually, kind of like a self-worth, because people constantly, when we talk about value is always about like evaluation and assessment and judgment, and you always constantly think about your worth and your like the worth of your work, the worth of your effort, your life. And I mean, these aspects of like economic sanctions have never been like studied that much. And I mean, what I'm doing right now is like collecting like testimonials, people, stories of people, how like they navigate their life with this uh, kind of sentiments. I mean, again, it's not about poverty. I mean, when we talk about poverty or impoverishment or like this kind of economic aspects of economic sanctions, poverty is a different thing, but devaluation, the impact of like devaluation is totally different thing. You know, I have a friend, he's like a heart surgeon, but he's not doing like surgery anymore because it doesn't work worth it. I mean, he told me that he used to do like 8 surgeries a day, like 10 years ago, and right now he's doing only 1 or 2 surgeries, and the rest of his time he's using to buying and selling like stuff in order to keep up with like this constant changing value of a thing, you know, buying, selling cars and properties and everything, and so he's a kind of like a middleman.
Maybe it's a really silly question, but I'm not an expert on these things, so bear with me. I'm wondering, I have two questions, I guess. One, like, to what extent does this experience that like people who are experiencing this are having, to what extent does it actually, or has it, in your opinion, actually unified people to kind of resist, even if we were to say resist this sense of like self-worth going down, let's say? And then I just keep thinking about how, there's, I guess, some places in the world or some small communities that try to kind of create some kind of alternative economies or alternative ways of organizing economies in their own small little, I'm wondering like why hasn't that, because it's such a large country with so many people, what stops people in such a situation from actually kind of coming together and being like, okay. And I'm saying this, I'm giving this question as someone who's not an expert and doesn't, maybe I don't understand all the connections and like the global scale. So that it might be a naive question I'm asking, but if it's helpful or useful or you think it makes sense, you can answer to it. But I have this question.
Um, I think I understood. I got your point. The thing is that, I mean, within Iran society, we have like different people. So a lot of people are totally alienated, 100% alienated. They think like they have no connection, even though they live over there in the place. They feel no connection to the country, to the system, to their life, to their social, political life, and that are the people they want to be bombed. They want to be like they are looking like desperate, looking for like military intervention. They want to destroy everything, and you have seen like this during the last few years, like a lot of violent protests. And these people, they are totally alienated. Some of them are in diaspora, some of them are inside Iran. Doesn't matter. Their mentality is like the same. No connection to the place, no connection to that system, to that social life. But there are a group of people that call themselves like Arzeshi, or people label them as Arzeshi, like righteous. Those people who feel that they are thinking about something more than material life. They are like their concern is more than material life, and they are like they have some kind of values more than like these economic values or material values. So those kind of people, their valuation system has not been affected that much. They still think in terms of like um, revolutionary goals and ideas to stand up against any forms of like a suppression, any forms of dominance, and any forms of imperialism and colonialism. And in Iran, the number of those people are a lot. They are not like that. So the thing is that this has resulted in kind of like a divide, in kind of like a societal polarization between like these two groups, the group of like righteous people and the group and another group they call themselves barandas, defiant. They want to like destroy the system and destroy the country. So this like tension between these two groups is so high in Iran. So Iran is not like one of them, is both of them.
I wanted to, and I know there's still the other question that Milena asked about the alternative economies part. And I think that the research that you're doing, which is on how people actually work with the borders,
Mm,
in order to bring in things and take out things, and you know, even people who might be heart surgeons are involved in, you know, these activities as a way of, I don't know if you wanted to speak to that first.
yeah, thank you for bringing up like this point because I totally forgot to talk about that. When I started my fieldwork in 2018, 2019 in my hometown in southeastern Iran, I've and that was like a few months after like Trump withdraw from like JCPOA or Iran deal or Iran nuclear deal, and he started to impose sanctions, and the currency started to lose its value, and banks were in trouble, all banks. So what I like studied in detail in my hometown and the other towns in Iran, southeastern Iran, I studied like the emergence of like this kind of like alternative economy that you are talking about. Like people get together to like and form like this kind of like a self-help organizations and like organization based on mutuality, and they help each other because banks didn't work that much, and everybody needed money. Even though money was losing its value, they needed money to like buy something more, like to store value for the future, like for example to buy an apartment or a property or something something else. But the thing is that, I mean, the cash was not available to that people. So they started, for example, forming in Giroflame, they started forming like the Basel group. So people would like share their daily income in like pool their daily income and give to each other. And it was like a large number, sum of money, a large sum of money would be collected every night. Like for example, 50,000, 60,000, or $100,000 a night, and they would like distribute this before they would give it to one person. So a person with $100,000 could invest this money and return some and like gain some. And this system was working very well. And I detailed it in my like one of like my papers about BAS. I'm not gonna like talk about that much right now. I don't, I'm not sure that we have enough time. But the thing is that this kind of like a self-help organization were like emerging a lot because banks were dysfunctional, the government was dysfunctional, and the currency was dysfunctional. So people found another way. I mean, in my paper, I also mentioned like the history of like this kind of like self-help organization in Iran. So like a city or like a region, for example, the area that I worked in, like we had like thousands of years of like this kind of organization, history of this kind of organization in both of like nomadic societies and peasant societies in Iran. And that history was used for these people, for this new generation, for these people to reinvent their tradition, their culture in a new way and cope with these economic sanctions in a very like a creative way. I mean, I'm not sure if I have enough time to explain it in detail, but I mean, the whole idea is that like they use their culture and tradition to reinvent new organization for their modern days needs. That's the whole point.
Milena, did you want to say you look like you want to say something? I don't know if you
No, I'm just absolutely amazed. Thank you for sharing that. And it gives me a lot of hope, to be honest, for I guess all peoples inhabiting this globe, dealing with crisis situations. And especially for the Iranian people dealing with the crisis situation they are in currently. So it gives me a lot of hope. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome. I mean, that's true. I mean, actually, I'm not sure if you have been born at that time or not, but you were born or not. But I mean, most of like this experience in like Soviet Union countries or like society, like economies based on like socialism, they follow like the same logic, and it's like one thing that uh, we, I personally discuss in my classes, like when I talk about the impact of markets on society, like the disastrous impact of markets on societies. And I mean, we need to have this kind of discussions more and more, and we need to talk about like these forms of like alternative societies. Let me give you an example, because I mean, what I talked about was like kind of like abstract. So, for example, I worked with like 200 people during my field work in Jiroft, southeastern Iran. Most of them, they were like young. They were like between like they were youth people between like in their 20s or 30s, and they were most of them like they didn't have that much education and that much capital. I mean, in terms of like social capital or physical capital. A lot of them, when they talked to me, they said that we were not eligible to get loans from banks. Anytime we applied for banks, we were rejected easily. But they knew each other, and they knew that they were like kind of like a trustworthy people. So one of them was like a guy who was like 23 years old. He used to sell. He was like a vendor selling like underwears. Like the whole capital he had was around like 1 or 2 million 2 months. Like one, let's say like less than $200. But people, they knew him, and they knew that he was like a trustworthy person. So they threw like a birthday party for his kid, and his kid was like had a kind of like cancer, and they collected the money over there for that birthday, more than like around like a $35,000, like something like that. So he was able to get the money and buy a like large cargo of like underwears, and he became like a from he went from like a vendor in a month he went from a vendor like selling stuff on the street to the large suppliers of like underwears in the whole area, and he started a new business, and his life totally changed like in a few months. But he was the person that no bank could trust him. But this kind of like a social organizations based on like social help, like mutuality was very successful in helping. I can give you like thousands of like these kind of like examples that people were able to change their life because of like each other's help. And this organization were not only about like kind of like a financial help. They were like functional in terms of like providing any kind of like emotional and any kind of help that people needed in their times of like crisis. So they are institutions that all societies need. I mean, especially in like these neoliberal societies when people are left alone by themselves.
I'm curious, Ehsan. So you're talking about the sanctions and the effect of that in the past decade or more. More, I mean, like decades. In the current situation, it's kind of like exacerbating, I guess, the crisis that was already there. I'm curious, yeah, coming to this moment now, if you're in touch with family and friends in Iran, you talk a lot about, having your education there and doing your research there. So I'm sure there's a lot of people about whom you are thinking, who are in your thoughts and who are in your prayers, I'm sure. I'm just curious, yeah, if you can tell us a bit more about what you've been hearing and what life is like on the ground there with this additional crisis unfolding even more today.
So war is always something exceptional. It's not something normal. So people live in the situation of exception. So right now, I mean, I was not able to talk to my family that much. Like internet is shut down in Iran, and phone calls are not like easy. But I know about them. I mean, very like short talks. We had short talks. So my friends calling me every day from different parts of Iran if they get a chance. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, people, schools are closed. I mean, in Iran, we have like another form of like internet here, like national internet. They started like this project. I don't know about it that much, but it's kind of like national internet. It's like disconnected from the global internet only for the like national use. So people are still using like kind of like national internet. So they can do a lot of things online. Like for example, schools are closed, so students can have online classes, or you can pay your bills online, or you can do a lot of like things online. But I mean, these are like again, this kind of like intranet, like national intranet, something that's only within the country, disconnected from the global internet. And I think it's a smart way, because this globalization actually only like side effect of this globalization reaches to the like countries of the south. So for example, even when your banks are disconnected from the global markets, or your currency is disconnected, or your country is disconnected, it's kind of like a fortune. Is it not unfortunate? But unfortunate for us because we cannot connect with them that much. But they're not that much like concerned, or the life is going on over there. I mean, the thing is that it's not people. They don't complain about like this stuff that much. Concerning is like in big cities, especially during the last few days, they started to bomb residential areas, and more and more residential areas. And people are scared and concerned about bombs, but the rest of the life, social life, is going on.
Yeah, and so the bombs and also the environmental impacts of where some of these bombs are hitting
Mm,
have like sites of oil production that are hit where not only do you have massive fires, but then the fumes impact mass swaths of residential areas. And so
absolutely.
people are like trying to go about their everyday life and, like pay the bills, go to school online,
Mm,
all of these things, while all of these forms of anti-life are also happening around them regularly. I wanted to ask, and this kind of maybe gets us a little bit into, the subject of this podcast, a little bit, for now. This is a podcast primarily about Armenia and about, things that affect Armenia's in various ways, including, of course, diaspora. And, there's many ways in which, one can think about what's happening with the war in Iran is impacting us as Armenians and other Armenians and all of that. One of them being, of course, the fact that, as co-hosts of this podcast, we have been very much in support of Palestine and very much against the still ongoing genocide in Palestine. And Iran has been one of those few sites of sovereign power. I mean, the only site really of sovereign power in the Middle East, but one of the few sites of sovereign power that has shown their support, unrelenting support for Palestinians. And the other question, of course, is the fact that our Armenians make up a pretty large minority, group in Iran. Um, Armenians share a border with Iran. And so there's all of these questions. So I wanted to ask about the question of minorities in Iran, especially that the late Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who was illegally murdered by the U.S. and Israel last week, was Azeri, which is something that, Western media completely elides and, goes with this very kind of Persian narrative of Iran as a Persian nation state and all of that. So if you could talk a little bit about the question of minorities in Iran.
Yeah, I mean, about Armenian community in Iran. So I think all of like modern arts in Iran is Armenian communities are not like a regular minority. They are very influential, very influential. I mean, a lot of good engineers, good like companies, big companies. Like for example, one of the best uh, designers and like fashion uh, company in Iran, in Hakupian, is like something that everybody in Iran, if they want to show that they have reached to a level that they can wear Hakupian things. So it's a symbol of like prestige, like that brand by itself. But in addition to that, I mean,
Better than Chanel, though.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we think that people they spend like millions to month to for Hakupian's stuff. I mean, in food industry, for example, Mikhailian and the other brands of like uh, food industry they are dominant in like the food industry in Iran, and also in the other kind of like industries. This Artur, I forgot his last name, but he has a big company in like machinery. They produce some kind of like machinery. In addition to that, I was talking about like the modern art. I mean, like in Iran, like cinematography or like pop music or like modern art. All of them were influenced heavily by the Armenian community. So Armenian communities were not like marginal minority community. They were like dominant community in modern culture of Iran. So if you want to listen to like Iranian music right now, you have like a lot of like singers, songwriters, and players, all of them like Armenian people. And the thing is, it's like a mutual feeling. So, I mean, in my own personal experience, I've never seen like an Iranian Armenian. They don't like identify themselves as Iranian. So they still like, for example, I still uh, listen to like Luris Cheknovarian's interview one time. He's saying like about like his experience in living in the U.S. and then he thought that the U.S. is not a place that he could connect to, so he's decided to be back to Iran. And Luris Cheknovarian was one of like the most respected musicians in Iran. So I mean, Khachaturian in cinematography. There are a lot of people. I mean, that's the thing. Is that, I mean, the thing is that they are not like minority in terms of like marginalized minority. They are like dominating in the country, at least in these domains like arts, sports, industry.
Can I say one thing that I know about Armenians in Iran that, I've heard, and it might be a joke, but I think a joke may be, built on some reality is that because of the general ban on alcohol production, Armenians are also known to
Yeah, that's
produce vodka like in their homes and are valued as a minority community because they can deliver on that good.
Arak, or yeah, they call it Arak. Armenian thing. I mean, everybody knows one Armenian to like to supply them with this kind of like alcohol beverage that Iranian use. But it shows that like there is like a big deep connection between like the rest of the community with Armenians and their. I mean. Again, they are not like marginalized community. They are dominant actually in many ways. I mean, maybe they feel some sort of discrimination. I'm not sure, but I think that I've never seen any kind of like real discrimination against Armenian, in at
I mean,
least at
I've heard also from Armenians from Iran that it's like they are quite enjoying or like quite privileged in Iran. So I think it's not just,
oh, thank you.
your perspective. I think I've heard it also from Armenians, Iranian Armenians themselves, that Iranian Armenians are quite privileged as a community in Iran.
Yeah, the the thing is that I mean I wanted to say something and I forgot because sorry. Let me think. So as a community, as an Armenian community, I mean, I wanted to say like one thing to relate it to like this Palestine-Israel issue. I think Iran is like one or like the only, not one, but one of the Middle Eastern countries that recognize like the genocide of Armenian people, and we have like I remember that when I was in Tehran in like every year I would witness like this remembrance of like a genocide of Armenian. Yeah, April 24, 1915. Yes, but this and the thing is that I mean that was something that a lot of like other people in Iran, Turk people, they didn't like this kind, but the government, people were always like we used to join the Armenian community to memor memorial like this day, and they share like the same thing in the field. So I mean it was not like a Palestinian genocide that Iranian like react to. It's like any kind of like suppression and genocide, any kind of like Iranians are like I think because of like the Shia background, mostly this Shia background tradition. And in Shiism, the difference between like Shiism and Sunnism in Islam is like this. I mean, Shiism is like identify themselves by supporting the suppressed, and always like it's like the slogan of like Shiism. And you know, you shouldn't be silent in when you witness any kind of like a suppression. You shouldn't be silent, and you should take action. You should do something. Maybe for Palestine, they have more sentiments, or they because it's something new and more like feel more related. But even for like Armenians, genocide, Iranians like have always been like the same feeling and the same. They had like the same approach. They always condemned.
Yeah, and I think, it's not we were talking before we started recording about Armenians in Armenia showing solidarity with
Yeah.
Iranians going through this war by laying flowers down at the Iranian embassy in Yerevan, in memorial of the death of the Ayatollah. And I think that there is this kind of feeling in Armenia of seeing Iranians as allies. But geopolitically now, that has also really like been coming undone with Armenia's kind of new, more pro-Western regime, and especially with what many of us were really upset about. Milena and I did a kind of episode on this with Markad Melkonian a few months ago about the so-called Trump corridor, which goes basically all the way through the 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 border between Armenia and
Mm,
Iran, and it's no coincidence that the U.S. Seeks to
mm,
do that to be able to be right on the border with Iran, in preparation for a war that we all knew was coming at some point. I mean, many extreme warmongers in the U.S. states have been advocating for war on Iran for years now, and so here we are. And so the other geopolitical component of this is a recent attack on Nakhichevan, which is historically that was majority Armenian up until I think 1920, and there were pogroms against Armenians there by the Ottoman Turks alongside a newly founded Azerbaijani state. But Armenians continued to live there until the breakup of the Soviet Union, where Nakhichevan became a province of the Republic of Azerbaijan. And no Armenians remain there. This is a place also that was attacked recently. We're not sure supposedly by Iran, although there are claims that this was a false flag operation by Israel. So maybe we can talk a little bit about that and what that means.
I just think it's really important to also say that Nakhichevan is considered part of Azerbaijan, but it's cut off from Azerbaijan geographically, and Armenia, mostly southern Armenia, is between Azerbaijan mainland and Nakhichevan. And this trip project that Tamar is talking about, the Trump peace, whatever corridor, whatever it's called, would basically connect Nakhichevan with Azerbaijan, and then it would be also connected with Turkey. I think it's important for our listeners who might not know the geographic placing of these very complex borderlands that we are in this region to have a better understanding of what's kind of happening here.
Yes, I mean, I'm not informed about like the recent incidents because I mean the reports are kind of like a contradictory. But I think what I know that about like this Nakhchivan stuff, the border, the corridor, this the whole thing, the Turk word. So we know that Turkish government wants to like create this kind of like the Turk word and this like uh, connecting like different part of like the Turkic countries. But the thing is that inside Iran, what I can say from inside Iran and from like social media, what I can say that, I mean, it's been like during the last few years when this kind of like discussion started, like after the Nakhchivan war, and then Azerbaijan felt that they can expand their territory and they can like follow their like this imperial ambitions or whatever they had in their mind. But within Iran, there was a lot of people talking about like Iran needed to stand up against like this kind of. I remember like the last president before Raisi was assassinated, killed, or I don't know. But even during Rouhani's presidency, always Iranian government stance was like that we don't let like any kind of like change in our borders. It meant that we don't let like the other people get involved in like in changing like the geopolitics of like the area because Iranian society wants like a real good relationship with Armenia. They don't want to be disconnected. And I think that it's been like something like historical and something cultural and something that also based on like mutual respect of nations, Iranians and Armenians, they want to be connected and they don't want this kind of like a connection to be disrupted. Even though again, as and Tamar also mentioned, a lot of like politicians in Iran in high offices, like current president Pezeshkian is an Azeri Turk, and he's very like kind of very when he was a parliament member of parliament, he was like a very big advocate for like Azeris community, Azeri society's rights, and they called a lot of people called him a pan-Turk. The late leader was Azeri too, and a lot of people like inside the government they are Azeris. But the thing is that when it comes to national interest, I think people even in the they know exactly that like the connection between Iran and Armenia is very important for our national interest, and they set aside like this kind of ethnic belonging and ethnic sentiments in favor of like national interests. So if your question is like about like the really future of this, I mean, this area, I I think that Iranians are very in favor of containing Azerbaijan and keeping their relationship with Armenia. Iran was like was criticized for like during the first war was criticized from inside because they said that Iran was helping Armenia more than Azerbaijan or something like that. And that's why in 2019, I think the last war was in 2019 or
2020.
2020. Yeah, Iran like kind of like supported Azerbaijan more in order to show that no, we are not supporting Armenia that much. But that decision was criticized a lot inside society. They said that it was not in our favor, it was not in our national interest, and it was like something stupid. Even a lot of people who advocated for like support for Azerbaijan, they revised their thoughts, and after they saw that Aliyev government like is not a friendly government. And during this war, I saw that Azerbaijan is sending kind of signals, helping or sending kind of aid to Iran. So they want to send this signal that they want to make. I mean, during the last few days, they sent a lot of aids, like kind of like food and medicine or something like that to the borders of Iran, showing the solidarity and so their good relationship.
While they're also
Mm.
literally fueling Israel.
Yeah,
They
that's the
are
thing.
fueling Israel. They are fueling Turkey, which we know now is actually producing arms for Israel,
Yeah.
right? So it's a kind of, I mean, I think that, my position on the Karabakh War, which I've talked about before on this podcast, is it's a conflict, right? And it's an ongoing conflict, and it's in no way,
Mm.
a lot of Armenians like to think about the question of Nagorno-Karabakh as, as the same as, like, for example, the question of Palestine or the question of Gaza. And those are not, for me, those are not similar things, because one is a conflict between two states, and one is an apartheid, genocidal, settler colonial entity that has, frankly, no right to exist, genociding a people who are indigenous to that land. But it's becoming clearer and clearer through all of these kind of territorial issues, especially all of these wars that are taking place, the war in Nagorno-Karabakh, the genocide in Gaza, and the two recent wars on Iran, the one that happened last June and then the one that's ongoing now, is, there's players in this that are on the side of humanity, and there's players in this that are on the side of literally exterminating humanity. And it's becoming, clear in all of these things, not necessarily Azerbaijan's role in the war, in Karabakh, although partly there as well, but especially the role that Azerbaijan is playing in Israel's genocide on Gaza and now its war on Iran, where Azerbaijan stands and where Turkey, importantly, also stands. So I think that should, we should make that clear.
I want to also
Yeah,
just,
thank you.
can I just add something? I think it's not, I don't know if I agree with players who are on the side of humanity. Like, I think just general people are on the side of humanity because they are hopefully having the ability to resist the devaluation of their own self-worth in order to be able to feel that they deserve to be human and stay human and alive. I don't think any players are really like on the side of humanity if we think about players in terms of like states, like what we would call players, basically. I think that any player state who had the power and the weapons just by being a nation state or would have aspirations of being a larger whatever thing. Like I don't think, yeah, I want to make sure that I mentioned this thing that I really believe in, that it's the people who are on the side of humanity and not nation states.
Which is complicated also because the people of, for example, the Arab world are people and on the side of humanity and have been pro-Palestine
Yeah.
and have made that very clear in many ways. It's their states that have refused to be human.
Yeah, but there are also Arab states in the Gulf whose people are, I mean, it's not their fault, but they are still benefiting from,
Yeah.
like all the oil production and whatever, like that they're getting rich off of
Well,
and
not
being able to
anymore.
Yes, not anymore. But what I'm trying to say is that when I talk about people, I mean people who are not in, like, as I said, like I'm using your sort of language, Ehsan, about the devaluation as I have understood it, and I have like sustaining a sense of self-worth, like worthy enough to stay alive and worthy to and all the things that sustain life. I think those people are different from the people who are like greedy and just want more and more and more. That's not in favor of life from my perspective.
Like a humanistic criticism of capitalism. That's I mean, the nature of capitalism actually that makes us all alienated in some way from our humanities. So, yeah, I personally enjoyed like but I'm not sure that that was able to cover some questions that you asked. I mean, can remind me. I mean,
You answered all of our questions. Just is there anything that you want to add? Is there anything that we want to keep discussing before we close?
no, I mean, we want to we just opened something about like a discussion about like minorities and stuff in Iran, and we talked about a little bit about like Armenian minorities, but and like Azeris and but one important part of like this kind of like a question of minority is like in Iran is like the question of like the Kurd people, the Kurdish people, and the involvement, like a potential involvement in this war against Iran. So, I mean, again, we don't have like that much like accurate information, but as far as I know, uh, this is the same thing comparable with like the Arab states and Arab population. Like there are Kurdish parties or political actors who are totally sold out to this Western imperialism, but the population of the Kurdish population, with a lot of them I'm in contact, I mean, personal contact, they don't feel that they need to get involved in a war against Iran. I mean, they actually support Iran. They feel themselves very Iranian. So even though like those Kurds, I'm not sure even if some parties, some fraction of like this Kurdish uh, community joined the war against Iran, I'm pretty sure like the majority of the Kurdish people, they are against this war and against like this national integrity of Iran and national against like the even separation from Iran.
Yeah, and that reminds me of like, the way in which the protests in was it in 20 the Woman Life Freedom protests
Mm,
when Masa Amini was murdered by the police in Tehran. Um
2022. Yeah.
2022. Um, the in Western media, right, you get this sense that the protests are definitively about women wanting freedom from a repressive Islamic, horrible terrorist regime. But the the question of, the fact that this woman who was murdered was a Kurdish woman, and that there is that there are some minority tensions in Iran, and that the state might have different understandings of some of the intentions of these protests, as well as the fact that some of these protests uh, that started off with Masa Amini ended up being largely about
Mm.
the alienation that you were describing, about the sanctions and everyday life being so horrid, as a result of US economic sanctions. I mean, we see the same things in Venezuela, we see the same things in Cuba, right? You cause everyday terror, and then when people protest, you claim, oh, look, they hate their
Mm.
government, they're protesting. Um, so yeah, I think that that question of, Kurdish minorities, the Kurdish movements, as well as, everyday Kurdish life in Iran is a very complicated one. Yeah.
But the whole idea is that they are very integrated into society, like as like the others are integrated. Maybe like religious minorities, like Armenians or like Jewish minority in Iran, they are not, or Zoroastrians, based on like that religious considerations, they are not that much integrated in the society. And because marriage is not something easy between like interreligious marriage. Religion marriage is not something common, but this like ethnic groups, they are very integrated inside Iran. So when we talk about Kurds, except some rural remote areas, the rest of the Kurdish population are very integrated with the rest of the community of Iranian society. So they don't feel that like it's like a Kurdish question or Kurdish cause, and we need to join to that Kurdish cause, or it's not something like a Turkish cause or like Baluchi. Even the Baluchis are very, very isolated because there is like a big desert between Baluchistan and rest of Iran, one of the biggest desert in the world. But even though they are isolated by geography, they still feel connected because, I mean, the common culture, tradition, and a lot of them they read like Iranian literature, and they feel very connected. They celebrate Nowruz, their food, their anything. I mean, uh, the Baluchi in Iran have a much better. I mean, the situation is not comparable with Baluch in Pakistan, for example. Baluch in Pakistan are treated very bad. Turks or Kurds in Iran are treated totally different with Kurds in Turkey and the other countries. So I think Iranian society, Iran as a country, as a nation, has like a long history of like inclusiveness, and that a nation is very like integrated compared to the other nations in the Middle East.
Thank you so much, Ehsan, for talking to us. I learned a lot, and I'm sure that
Thank you for
our
this
audience
opportunity.
did as well. Yeah, as for, to remember, please like, subscribe, comment, share this video or this episode, rate us, do all of the things that are on available to you on whatever platform you are listening to us on. And thank you, Ehsan, especially since you are fasting right now and have agreed to come and talk to us.
Thank you,
Oh,
Hassan.
thank you again, Milana and Tamar. I appreciate like this opportunity and appreciate this conversation. It was like helpful to me, and it was like I felt more connected to the Armenian community right now.
You
I
are
hope
welcome.
that,
You are
yeah.
welcome to Armenia anytime.
Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. All right.
Okay.
Thank you for listening, everyone. Take care.
Until next time.
Goodbye. Till next
Bye
time.
bye.
Bye.